It was a stormy night in the small riverside village of Nandipur. The wind howled through the bamboo groves, lightning flashed like angry veins across the sky, and rain fell in sheets heavy enough to drown the cries of the restless. In the middle of the chaos stood a small, half-broken house at the edge of the village, home to Shaila, a young widow of only 22. Her husband, Rafiq, had died mysteriously just a month ago in a fire that consumed their fields and left her alone, broken, and shunned by the villagers who whispered that she was cursed. They said she had brought bad luck, that wherever she went, tragedy followed. No one knew the truth. No one cared to. That night, as thunder rolled over the horizon, Shaila sat near a flickering oil lamp, her face pale and wet from tears. In her hands, she held a charred locket, the only thing left from Rafiq's burned body. Inside was their picture, smiling under the same mango tree where they had first met. She touched it gently, whispering through sobs, "They killed you, Rafiq. I know they did. And I will make them pay." Because Shaila knew the truth. Her husband's death was no accident. Rafiq had borrowed money from Hafiz, the wealthy landowner of the village, a man whose greed knew no bounds. When Rafiq couldn't repay on time, Hafiz and his men had come one night, drunk and cruel. They had beaten him, tied him to a post, and set fire to his field, knowing he would rush to save it. And when the flames took him, they laughed. Shaila had seen it all from a distance. She had run, screamed, begged for help, but no one came. The fire devoured her husband, and the villagers turned away. That night her soul broke. Now, 30 days later, the same men were celebrating at Hafiz's mansion. Music, food, and laughter filling the air while lightning painted their shadows on the walls. But amid that laughter, a strange unease began to creep in. The wind changed. Dogs howled. The lamps flickered. And from the darkness near the river she came. Draped in a white sari soaked with rain and mud, Shaila walked slowly, her hair hanging like a veil, her eyes burning with something not human. Her footsteps made no sound on the wet earth. In her hand, the same burnt locket glowed faintly, pulsing like a living heart. The villagers who saw her froze. "Isn't that Shaila?" One whispered. "No," another stammered. She died last week. Didn't you hear? She jumped into the river." But before anyone could move, lightning struck a nearby tree, splitting it in two, and Shaila vanished in the flash. Inside Hafiz's mansion, the celebration was at its peak. Hafiz laughed, drunk with power, his gold rings glinting in the lamplight. "To Rafiq," he sneered. "A fool who thought he could cheat me and live." The men laughed, raising their glasses, but the laughter died when the oil lamp beside them suddenly went out. Darkness, and a whisper. "Did you miss me, Hafiz?" Hafiz froze. He looked around but saw no one. The air grew thick, the temperature dropped. Then, from the corner of the room, water began dripping, not from the ceiling but from the walls themselves. The men watched in horror as wet footprints appeared across the floor, coming closer, one step at a time. Hafiz grabbed a lantern and swung it wildly. "Who's there?" The light caught something. A pale face reflected in the mirror on the wall, a face with hollow eyes and a faint, twisted smile. The reflection moved even though no one stood before it. "Rafiq waited for you." The whisper came again, this time from behind him. Hafiz turned, and the lantern fell from his hand, shattering on the floor. Standing there was Shaila, drenched, lifeless, her skin ashen and her hair dripping river water. "You took everything from me," she said softly. Hafiz stumbled back, trembling. You're dead." Shaila smiled faintly. "Yes. And now I've come to take you with me." The doors slammed shut. The men screamed. Thunder roared as flames erupted from the broken lantern oil, spreading across the floor. Hafiz tried to run, but the flames formed a ring around him. In the flickering firelight, Shaila's ghostly form stood still, her white sari now glowing red in the reflection of the fire. "You burned him alive, Hafiz," she whispered. "Now feel what he felt." The house filled with smoke, and Hafiz's screams pierced the night. Outside, the villagers watched from afar, seeing the mansion burn just as Rafiq's field once had. Through the flames, they swore they saw a woman in white, standing in the fire, smiling. When the fire died at dawn, nothing remained but ashes, and in the middle of the ruins, a single burnt locket, still warm to the touch. The fire that destroyed Hafiz's mansion burned for 2 whole days. When it finally died, the villagers gathered to see what was left. Nothing but ash, blackened wood and silence. Not even bones were found. Only a burnt silver locket, still gleaming faintly under the morning sun. Some said it was Rafiq's soul that returned for justice. Others whispered that Shaila's ghost had become something far more dangerous, a spirit born of fire and sorrow. The elders of Nandipur tried to calm the fear. "It's over," they said. "The evil is gone." But deep inside, everyone knew something had changed in the village, because the river had changed too. It used to sing softly at night, its water clear and calm. Now it murmured in strange voices. On moonless nights, villagers swore they heard someone crying near the riverbank, a woman's voice, soft and broken, calling out a name again and again. Rafiq. Rafiq. No one dared to go near after dark. 3 nights after the fire, Rahim, one of Hafiz's men who had helped burn Rafiq's field, woke up in the middle of the night. He was sweating, gasping for air. A dream had shaken him. Shaila's face, half-burnt, staring at him from the river, whispering, "You can't run from me." He tried to shake it off, walked out to the yard to fetch water. The air was still too still. Even the crickets were silent. Then he saw the river shimmering under the faint starlight, though no moon was out. It almost looked alive. Rahim rubbed his eyes. "Just my imagination," he muttered. But then he saw something, a figure standing knee-deep in the water. A woman, hair long, dripping, head slightly tilted. She was facing away. "Who's there?" Rahim called. No answer. He stepped closer, his heart pounding. "Hey! It's not safe here." The figure slowly turned. Her face was pale and cold, eyes empty, mouth twisted in a faint, familiar smile. The water around her began to bubble, as though boiling. "Shaila!" Rahim whispered in horror. Before he could scream, something grabbed his legs from beneath the water, cold, strong hands pulling him under. He struggled, clawed at the mud, but the more he fought, the deeper he sank. His last breath was a scream that no one heard. The river went still again. By morning, his body washed up on the bank, skin pale, eyes wide open, mouth full of water and weeds. Fear spread through Nandipur once more. 2 deaths in 1 week, both connected to Hafiz. People started leaving the village. Those who stayed locked their doors after sunset. Children were told not to speak Shaila's name aloud. But the more they feared, the stronger her presence became. Then came Nasir, another of Hafiz's old men, the one who had lit the fire that killed Rafiq. He was a cowardly man, always mumbling prayers, always afraid of his own shadow. After Rahim's death, he stopped going near the river. But that didn't save him. One evening, as he sat in his hut sharpening a sickle, he heard a knock. He froze. No one visited him after dark. "Who's there?" Silence. The knock came again, harder this time. Nasir stood up slowly, his hands trembling. He peered through a crack in the door, and saw nothing but mist outside. Still something felt wrong. The air smelled like river water. Then a voice came, soft and calm. "Nasir." His blood ran cold. He knew that voice. He opened the door a crack, and there she was. Shaila, standing in the fog, her white sari soaked, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "No, please," Nasir stammered, falling to his knees. "Forgive me. Hafiz made me do it. I didn't want to." Shaila stepped closer, her bare feet leaving wet marks on the dry floor. She knelt down to meet his eyes, her cold hand brushing his cheek. "Forgive you," she whispered. "Did you forgive him when he screamed for help?" Nasir sobbed, clutching her feet. "Please. I have children." Shaila tilted her head. "So did I." Then the oil lamp went out. A gust of wind slammed the door shut. Inside the hut, screams echoed for a full minute, then silence. When villagers came the next morning, they found Nasir's body hanging from the ceiling. His skin pale, his eyes black as the river. On the wall, written in ashes, were 3 words. The river remembers. That same night, the village priest, Mulavi Karim, gathered the remaining villagers at the mosque. "We must end this," he said firmly. "This is no longer a woman's ghost. This is a spirit bound to revenge. A river spirit. She won't stop until her pain is ended." "But how?" asked one of the men. "We can't fight a ghost. She's tied to her locket," the Mulavi said. "That's the key. Burn it in holy fire, and her soul will rest." So they planned to find the locket that had survived both fires, the one the villagers had hidden out of fear. But what they didn't know was, Shaila was listening. From the riverbank, her spirit watched them, her once human face now fading, her voice echoing in the wind. "You took everything from me," she whispered. "Now I take everything from you." That night, as the Mulavi prepared his prayer and fire for the ritual, a storm began to rise again. The same kind of storm that had taken Rafiq's life. The wind screamed through the trees. Lamps went out one by one. The river overflowed, flooding the village paths. And from the water she came once more, her eyes glowing brighter than ever, her voice echoing like thunder. "This village will burn as my heart did." Lightning struck the mosque. The holy fire scattered. The villagers ran, screaming, as water and flame clashed together. In the chaos, the locket that had been placed near the fire rolled into the river, and vanished beneath the waves. At dawn, Nandipur was half under water. Dozens were missing. The rest fled, never to return. The village of Nandipur was abandoned. Only the river remained, calm once again, almost peaceful. But sometimes when the night is silent and the moon hides behind clouds, the water still whispers a name. Rafiq. The fire that destroyed Hafiz's mansion burned for 2 whole days. 25 years later, when it finally died, the once lively villagers gathered to see what was left. A forgotten wasteland. Nothing but ash. The river still flowed, and calm and silver under the moonlight. Not even bones were found. But no one came near it anymore. Only a burnt silver locket. Locals from nearby towns gleaming faintly under the morning sun. River. Some said it was Rafiq's soul that returned for justice. You'd hear voices calling your name, that Shaila's ghost and if had you become something far more dangerous. But not everyone believed in such stories. The elders of Nandipur tried to calm the fear. A group of university students from Dhaka decided to visit the abandoned village for a research project. But deep inside, their leader was Ayan Rahman. Something had changed in the village of anthropology because the river had changed, curious, and determined to sing softly at night. Ghosts are just stories people make up. And calm. With him came Tanya, murmured in his best friend and videographer, Rafiq. On moonless nights, a jokester with a loud mouth they heard someone crying near the riverbank. A quiet girl who believed in the supernatural more than anyone else, calling out a name again and again. Ayan said as they entered the overgrown path. No one dared to go near after dark. We'll prove the river story is nothing but a myth. One of Hafiz's men who had helped burn Rafiq's field. Some myths are better left in the middle of the night. He was sweating, gasping for air. That's what makes them interesting. A dream had shaken him. As they reached the Shaila's face, the air turned staring at him from the river. The place was eerily silent. "You can't run from me." The old houses were nothing but skeletons of bamboo to the yard to fetch water. The mosque lay in ruins, its walls cracked. Even the crickets were half sunk into the ground. Then he saw the river looked shimmering under the faint starlight. Tanya switched on her camera. Was out. This is the site of the mysterious Nandipur tragedy, rubbed his eyes, where a massive flood destroyed the village 25 years ago. But then he saw something. Locals claim it's haunted by a woman deep in the water. Shaila, a woman, they say. Hair long, let's find out if there's any truth to it. She was facing away. Explored. Ayan noticed something near the water. Called. A silver locket, half buried in the mud. He stepped closer, his heart pounding. He picked it up, wiped the dirt, and saw the faint engraving of a woman's face. Her face was pale and cold, jewelry, eyes empty, he said casually, mouth twisted in a faint familiar smile. The water around her began to bubble, as though boiling. Shaila. A sudden gust of wind whispered across the field. Before he could scream, the river rippled. Something grabbed his legs from beneath the water. The sky darkened as thick clouds rolled in. Even though it was only afternoon, clawed at the mud. Let's head back. But the more he fought, Tanya said the deeper he sank. The weather's
His last
changing,
breath was a scream
but
that
Ian
no
was
one
fascinated.
heard.
The river
No
went
way.
still again.
We're staying till
By
night.
morning, his body
This
washed
is
up on the
perfect
bank.
footage.
Skin pale,
New moon
eyes
nightfall
wide
at
open,
Nandipur.
mouth full of water
By
and
dusk,
weeds.
the team
Fear
set up a
spread
small
through
camp
Nandipur
near the
once
old
more.
mosque ruins.
2 deaths in
They
1
lit a
week.
lantern, shared
Both connected
snacks,
to
and joked
Hafiz.
to ease the tension.
People started leaving
But as
the
night
village.
deepened,
Those
strange
who stayed
things
locked
began to
their
happen.
doors after
The
sunset.
lantern flickered.
Children were
Once,
told
twice,
not to speak
then went
Shaila's
out,
name
even
aloud.
though there was no wind.
But the more they feared,
Rafi tried to
the
relight
stronger
it,
her
but
presence
froze
became.
mid-motion.
Then
Do
came
you hear
Nasir,
that?
another
He
of
whispered.
Hafiz's old men.
From across the river
the one
came
who
the
had
sound
lit
of
the
a
fire
woman
that
humming.
killed Rafiq.
Soft, distant,
He was
but
a cowardly
hauntingly
man,
familiar.
always
The
mumbling
same
prayers,
tune repeated again
always
and
afraid
again,
of his own shadow.
rising and falling
After
with the flow of
Rahim's
the
death,
water.
Sadia
Stopped
clutched
going
her
near the river.
scarf.
But
But
that
her
didn't
lullaby,
save him, she whispered.
One evening,
Shaila
as he
used
sat
to
in his
sing
hut
that song to
sharpening
her
a sickle,
husband before he died.
he heard a knock.
Stop it, Sadia. He froze.
Ian snapped,
No
though
one
his voice
visited him
trembled
after
slightly.
dark. There's
Who's
no
there?
ghost here.
Silence.
Suddenly,
The knock came
the
again,
locket in his
harder this
hand
time.
grew ice cold. The chain tightened
Nasir
around his
stood up
wrist
slowly,
as if alive.
his hands trembling.
He dropped it instantly, and
He
it fell
peered
through a
straight
crack
into
in
the
the
river.
door.
The
And saw
humming
nothing
stopped.
but mist
Silence.
outside. Then
Still
a
something
faint
felt
voice
wrong.
floated across
The air
dark
smelled
water.
like river
A
water.
woman's voice.
Then a voice came.
Why did you
soft
wake
and
me?
calm.
Droplets the
Nasir,
river awakens.
his blood ran cold.
The water began
He
to
knew that
swirl
voice.
violently.
He opened the door a
forming
crack,
small
and there
whirlpools.
she was.
Mist
Shaila
rose from the
standing in the
surface,
fog,
shaping
her
itself
white
into
sari
something
soaked.
human.
Her
A
eyes
shadowy
glowing
figure of a
faintly
woman
blue.
in a tattered white
No,
sari.
please.
Her eyes
Nasir
glowing faintly
stammered,
blue.
falling to his
Tanya
knees.
screamed,
Forgive
stumbling
me.
backward.
Hafiz made
Oh
me
my
do
God,
it.
it's real.
I didn't want to.
Ian stared
Shaila
in
stepped
disbelief.
closer.
It
Her
can't
bare
be.
feet leaving wet
The figure
marks on the
spoke
dry
again.
floor.
Her voice
She knelt
echoing
down to
like
meet his
wind
eyes,
through hollow
her cold
bones.
hand brushing
You brought
his
it
cheek.
back, my pain,
Forgive
my
you,
fire,
she
my
whispered.
curse. Did
The
you
river
forgive him
surged
when
forward,
he screamed for help?
splashing violently
Nasir
against
sobbed,
the shore.
clutching her feet.
The locket floated up
Please.
again.
I have
but
children.
now it burned with blue
Shaila
flames.
tilted her head.
Rafi panicked.
So did
Ian,
I.
do
Then
something.
the oil lamp went out.
Ian grabbed a
gust
camera,
of wind slammed
desperate
the
to
door
document
shut.
it.
Inside
This-
the hut,
this is proof.
screams echoed
But
for
as
a
soon
full
as he
minute.
pointed the
Then
camera,
silence.
it shattered
When
in his
villagers
hands.
came the next
The
morning,
figure turned
they found
toward him,
Nasir's
her
body
eyes
hanging from the
locking on
ceiling.
his.
You
His
took
skin
what was
pale,
mine,
his
she
eyes
hissed.
black as the
Now
river.
I'll take
On
what's
the wall,
yours.
written in
The
ashes
ground
were
beneath
three
them
words.
trembled.
The river
From the
remembers.
mud, hands began to
That
rise.
same night,
The village
ghostly
priest,
water-soaked
Molovi
arms
Karim,
grabbing their ankles,
gathered the remaining
pulling them
villagers
toward
at
the
the
river.
mosque. They
We must
screamed,
end
kicked,
this,
fought.
he said firmly.
But the more they struggled,
This is no
the stronger
longer
the
a
grip
woman's
became.
ghost.
Sadia
This is a
shouted
spirit
prayers,
bound to
her
revenge.
voice trembling.
A river
In the name
spirit.
of the Almighty,
She won't
leave
stop
us.
until her
The
pain
ghost
is ended.
paused. But her
How?
eyes softened for a
asked
moment.
one of the men.
Then turned
We can't
sorrowful.
fight a ghost.
I waited
She's
for
tied
peace,
to her locket,
she whispered.
the Molovi
But
said.
no one came.
That's the key.
Sadia took a step
Burn it
forward.
in holy fire.
You're not evil,
and her
are
soul
you?
will rest.
You just want
So they
rest.
planned to find the locket
Shaila's
that had
spirit
survived
tilted
both
her
fires.
head.
Rest.
The one the villagers
They
had
burned
hidden
my
out
love.
of fear.
They drowned
what
my
they
name.
didn't know was,
Even now,
Shaila
the river
was
carries
listening.
their sins.
From the riverbank,
a flash
her
of
spirit
lightning
watched
lit
the
them.
sky.
Her once
The
human
storm
face
raged
now
again,
fading,
just
her
as
voice
it had years
echoing
ago.
in the wind.
Tanya
You
fell
took
to her
everything
knees.
from me,
Please,
she whispered.
We didn't
Now
mean to
I
disturb
take
you,
everything from
but
you.
the spirit was
That
already
night,
changing.
as the Molovi prepared
her voice
his prayer and
twisting,
fire for the
echoing
ritual.
with dozens of others.
A storm began
You
to rise
came here
again.
for truth.
The same
Now
kind of
know
storm
it.
that had
High
taken
voltage, the
Rafiq's
vision.
life.
Suddenly,
The wind
everything
screamed
went
through
white.
the trees.
Ian
Lamps
found
went
himself
out one by
standing in
one.
the middle of a burning
The river
field.
overflowed,
Rafiq
flooding
screaming
the
for help.
village paths.
Hafiz laughing,
and from
villagers
the water
watching
she came
in
once
fear.
more.
Her
He
eyes
saw
glowing
Shaila
brighter
crying,
than ever,
begging for mercy,
her voice
her
echoing
hands
like
burned,
thunder,
her voice
This
breaking.
village will
Then
burn
came
as
the
my
fire,
heart
the
did.
screams,
Lightning
the darkness.
struck the mosque.
He realized
the holy
he was
fire
reliving the
scattered.
past.
The villagers
When the vision
ran,
ended,
screaming,
he was
as
on the
water
ground,
and flame
shaking.
clashed together.
Tears rolled
In the
down
chaos,
his cheeks.
the locket that
She
had been
wasn't a
placed near the
ghost,
fire
he
rolled
whispered.
into the river.
She was
and
betrayed
vanished beneath the waves.
Sadia knelt
At
beside
dawn,
him.
Nandipur
Then
was
we
half
must free
underwater.
her.
Dozens
How?
were missing.
The locket,
the
it's her
rest
bond.
fled,
We
never
must
to
burn
return
it with prayer,
The village
not
of
hate.
Nandipur was
Fire
abandoned.
breaking the curse.
Only the river
They
remained.
gathered wood,
Lit
calm
a small
once again,
fire beside
almost
the river,
peaceful,
and began
but
to pray.
sometimes when the
As
night is
Sadia
silent
recited
and the moon
holy
hides
verses,
behind clouds,
the locket floated
water
up from the
still
water
whispers
and
a
landed
name.
in her hands,
Rafiq, glowing faintly. Shaila's spirit appeared once more, calmer now, her face more human. "Will you set me free?" she asked softly. Sadia nodded. "Your pain ends tonight." As the last verse echoed through the air, Sadia dropped the locket into the flames. The fire turned blue, then white, then exploded into a shower of light that spread across the river. The water calmed. The storm stopped. The mist cleared. And Shaila smiled. For the first time in decades, her face was peaceful. "Thank you," she whispered. "Tell them the river sleeps now." Then she faded, slowly like morning fog under sunlight. Sunrise epilogue. When dawn broke, the river looked clear and calm, reflecting the soft orange sky. Birds sang again. The air felt light, free. The students packed their things in silence. None of them spoke for hours. Before leaving, Ayan placed a small white flower at the riverbank. "Rest in peace, Shaila," Sadia whispered. "The curse is broken." But as they turned to go, the river rippled softly, and a faint voice, almost playful this time, whispered, "Remember me." The sound faded into the wind. And the river of Nandipur once again flowed quietly, hiding its memories deep within, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to disturb its eternal rest. Candle, the end candle.